just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. What I feel.
Verdammte AID-Schergen. Ja, ja. Also. So leicht ist das nicht. Bürger disziplinieren.
The following is a list of implants you'll want to take. Deflection Hardener. This implant increases your defense and elemental defense by a significant amount for a short time, which allows you to stand toe-to-toe with bosses and knock them out. Deflection Supercharger. You won't get this implant until much later in the game, but it boosts your damage by a whopping 30% and grants you 25 energy when you successfully deflect an attack. It's outstanding. Deflection Damage Enhancer. This implant will boost your damage after deflection by 10%, which is nice. Only costs 3 core power too. You may opt not to use this one early on when your implant space is more limited. Deflection Energy Converter. This implant will give you 25 energy when you deflect, which is a good amount. Battery Adrenalizer. This implant increases your stamina recovery when you fill a battery. You tend to chew up stamina when blocking repeatedly, so you'll need the recovery. Dynamic Redirector. Gaining 30 energy when struck will help you heal when you make mistakes on your timing. Definitely worth the slot. Nano Absorber. Nano buildup is an issue with some bosses, so you'll want to use this one when it makes sense. For your injectable, you'll use the Medivoltaic injection, and you want to upgrade it as often as you can. You want to stack up heals so that you can sit there and tank hits when you make mistakes and live to tell the tale. You will take damage with this playstyle, but you can out-heal a lot of it. Final tips. Battery efficiency is very important for this build because it allows you to accumulate more charges for your heal, and also improves how much you heal for. You want your heals to fill nearly your entire health bar, so pump this early on in order to see best results. Stamina and health are also important, so once you start seeing diminishing returns, dump points there. Don't be afraid to change your armor when you aren't facing bosses for something a bit more offensive. Normal enemies don't deal that much elemental damage, so you may wish to opt for something that gives you a bit more benefit. Look for anything that boosts damage. Enemies have the same moveset as you for the weapon they are wielding. This makes it easy to predict what sort of attacks they will do once you've seen a few enemies with the same weapon type. Use this to your advantage when fighting them and learn to anticipate what attack they will do so you can deflect it and punish them. Lastly, I mentioned it earlier, but I'll mention it again. This is a more advanced build and requires some practice. You aren't going to be a deflection god without taking a few lumps. However, this build is designed to let you survive some of your mistakes to give you time to memorize movesets. Don't expect to defeat a boss on your first try if you don't know what attacks he does with this build. Use your first attempt to learn them, and then the second attempt to make a good go of it. Be sure to check out our other Surge 2 builds, and don't forget to have a look at our Getting Started guide if you're just beginning the game.
Alright, you amazing bastards. Here is in my opinion best build for first playthrough. This build will get you through early game all the way up to the end if you wanted to do so. Set that I'm wearing is Scarab set. It can be obtained before Cloud9 bar. You can go directly there at the beginning of the game, but it's gonna be tough taking down these enemies without proper upgrades since they are level 4. Usually I get this set after Little Johnny, which is normal progression route. Don't forget that it is very important if you want to take this build all the way to upgrade it constantly upon reaching new areas and battling high level enemies. Without it, it's all going to become obsolete, but that goes for every build in Surge too. Up until this point, I would suggest using Scavenger Set. That set is obtained right at the beginning of the game from the very first enemies. Combine Scavenger Set with one of the best early weapons. To know about best early game weapons, simply watch my video on that topic. Scarab Set reduces duration of received elemental afflictions, which is nice because you're gonna experience a lot of elemental bollocks from early to end game. 3-piece set bonus increases defense when 3 batteries are charged. If 5 batteries are charged, that bonus is increased even further. Honestly, I never even played with 5 batteries in my first playthrough because I didn't have the need for it. I invested into health and stamina instead. Also, bonus that we get for filling up 3 batteries is more than enough. Scarab set pieces offer additional impact, reduced stamina consumption when wading and running, and also increased damage versus armored body parts. But you should still aim for unarmored body parts because armored body parts always reduce incoming damage. Weapon that I'm using is one of the best early and mid-game weapons called Darkened Dragoon. It is also one of the weapons covered in my best early game weapons video. This weapon will serve you well, except against nanite type enemies. Versus nanite type enemies, switch to full physical damage, or you can choose something like MG Negotiator that stuns enemies. For new players, I'm suggesting spear and staff type weapons because they have extremely long reach and are very easy to use. As for the implants, we always need ancillary core that increases core power so we can equip whole sets and more implants. I have directional block analyzer equipped at all times for every build because it's such a good bloody implant. Then we have normal injection, automatic inject charger, but this is not really necessary, it's completely optional, so you can remove it if you don't like it. Then we have recapacitator. This is a must for this build. As soon as you get to recapacitator, equip it because that prevents decay of batteries. Batteries are very important for this build because preventing battery loss makes for achieving partial set bonus faster. Another important implant is called Energy Dynamo. It increases energy gain through successful attacks. This would be core setup, add on top of it whatever you like. Versus bosses you can always add something that does increase damage against robotic, nanite or humanoid type enemies depending on what boss you are facing. Stat distribution should be something like this at level 40. Battery is the most important one because we need to increase amount of batteries that we have. And it also improves injections, which is quite helpful. Other than that, spread points in health and stamina. Upon reaching 4 batteries, you don't need to invest into battery anymore. Then invest heavily into health and stamina and you're gonna be fine throughout the whole game. More than 30 points into battery is not necessary for this build, but it's up to you. If you want to go for 5 batteries, that is also an option. Now on to how to play this. This build prefers the wading rather than the blocking. Blocking drains a lot of stamina and we don't have it at this point yet. After acquiring 4 batteries, then we can invest heavily into stamina and health, which would then make blocking more viable. Also, leg part of Skara Barbar set reduces evasion cost, and we can further reduce it with an implant that is gained later in the game. Offensively, I would suggest not using finishing moves unless farming for materials. Finishing moves cost battery, and we need to keep battery up in order to get that partial bonus from Scarab set that increases our defense. That is why finishing moves are not preferred with this build. Use them only when necessary or when farming. That's all, now go out there and destroy everything. Here are locations of, in my opinion, best 4 early game weapons. There's also metamorphing talents that you can get by watching Strange Vision on the Broken Bridge. You can't really miss that, but they are not as good as these other 4 weapons in my opinion. At least not for the early game. First weapon on the menu is Double Duty weapon that is absolutely amazing, but for that you're gonna have to kill really tough enemy on the bridge. Cut off his right arm and bootleg split cleaver will be yours. Double duty weapons in general are very good in this game. Second awesome weapon is heavy duty one. The best early heavy duty weapon in my opinion. Jump down at the canal and cut off the right arm of this bastard. After that we have staff weapon called MG Negotiator. This is the same weapon as from the Surge 1. Follow the path in the video directly from the heavy duty weapon that we picked up earlier. At the end of the alley there will be a couple of enemies. The one that you want is the woman wielding the staff. Cut off her right arm to get MG Negotiator. In my opinion, best early game weapon is staff that is obtained by watching Strange Vision. This is the same location where we found that drone for private practice quest. Upon reaching this courtyard where the drone was, watch the Strange Vision until it ends and then open the chest that will spawn after it. That would be all. Thanks for watching and I hope these tips help. Here is a guide for Little Johnny boss fight. I'm also going to show you how to get Little Johnny's Forceps version 2, which is secret weapon. You get Little Johnny's Forceps version 1 by defeating him in a normal way. But to get version 2 you gotta defeat him in a specific way. Difference is that first you have to cut off both of his arms and then proceed destroying his legs and everything else. Best method I found out for this fight is to stand on the sides between two legs and poke him with spear or staff type weapon. Anything that has long reach. He misses a lot when trying to attack you when you're standing at that exact point. Some of his attacks are almost unavoidable and frustrating as hell, especially some kind of stomp attack that he does with only one leg. It's very difficult to avoid, so don't lose your shit over it. I've had many issues with this fight as well. Just focus on cutting off both of his arms first. After cutting off his arms, you now have 3 legs and 2 canisters to deal with. Considering that these have red shield, meaning they are enhanced, charged attacks are best bet against it. However, be extremely careful with charged attacks because they can take too long and Little Johnny can punish you. That's why in this video I didn't really use charge attacks that much. I went with normal attacks, biding my time. It is up to you, however, depending on what weapon you're using, if you want to use charge attacks or not. Doesn't matter what part of Johnny you're attacking. It only matters that you are standing on the sides between those 2 legs. This is where you should aim to be during this whole fight. It won't save you from all the damage, but it will save you from some of it at least. I would suggest also equipping Toxic Filter Implant. That will reduce poison buildup. Boss also does electricity damage, but at this point in game there aren't many things that you can do to reduce it. That would be all for my tips for this particular fight. You're probably going to die first couple of attempts until you learn this bastard's moveset, but don't sweat it, that's the usual thing for most bosses in this game. Just be patient and you're gonna get through it. Thanks for watching. Alright, you amazing.
Hello, welcome to the Surge 2 Weapons Ranked and Explained. In this, I will be showcasing all 9 of the weapon classes in the game, what I consider to be optimal combos for each type, and will be assigning everyone an arbitrary scored ranking based on how effective I think the weapon is overall, while also weighing in on the pros and cons of each. In the Surge, certain attacks and combos actually differ according to which area of the body you're targeting, completely altering most attack animations, just something to keep in mind before we dive into these combos. Now it's time to get to it and dig into the deadliest arsenal of surgical equipment known to man in the Surge 2. The Spear. The Spear is a fast and long-reaching weapon that excels in one-on-one combat and dispatching enemies before they even know it just poked them. The Spear has a range of very quick and long-reaching jab attacks coupled with forward-leaping spin attacks. The charge attacks are fairly straightforward and don't offer a ton of variety compared to your standard strikes, but still useful for baiting enemies. For the Spear, I prefer its dash and dodge attack for starting up combos compared to its somewhat mediocre jumping attack. The R1 R2 R2 combo is a decent damage dealer, and the R2 R1 R1 spin combo is one of the Spear's best tools at taking on groups. My favorite go-to combo for the Spear, however, has to be the triple R1 to R2 string that deals fast raw damage and quickly gets you to that vertical slam finisher. The Spear is incredibly solid overall and really fun to play once you find the right combos for it. The charge attacks are somewhat lacking, but it does make up for this with a very well-rounded moveset that allows you to dispatch your enemies from a somewhat safer distance. With only minor drawbacks, my arbitrary rating for the Spear has to be a very strong 4.5 out of 5. The Hammer. The Hammer is a very straightforward weapon that hits hard, has an easy to learn moveset, can knock down enemies, and for what it lacks in style, it makes up for in utility. The Hammer's horizontal and vertical strikes have a fairly average wind-up speed and hit quite hard, but do somewhat lack in overall reach. I didn't find the dodge attack to be incredibly useful, at least compared to the more effective dash and jump attacks that are great for catching enemies off guard. The Hammer's charge attacks are decent, nothing great, but I do prefer the vertical charge that has pretty good reach. One of my favorite single enemy focused combos is the R1 R2 R2 that strings into a very strong slam attack. A great way to deal with groups of enemies is the R2 R1 R1 combo that has a repeatable ending spin that can be devastating if you pump up your stamina stat. Overall, I found the Hammer to be a great go-to weapon for taking down regular groups of enemies, and really like the weight to some of its hits, but the slow startup to some of its swings make it somewhat lacking against quicker enemies or difficult boss encounters. I will be assigning the Hammer an arbitrary overall ranking of 3 out of 5. The Twin Rigged. The Twin Rigged is an incredibly fast and agile weapon with some pretty elaborate attack animations mixed with a few hit and run tactics up both its sleeves. The Twin Rigged's vertical and horizontal strikes are incredibly quick and hit multiple times. The horizontal charge is a decent spin attack, and the vertical charge is a situationally useful backwards evasive strike. The dash and dodge attacks are decent at closing the distance, but I do prefer the quick hitting jump attack. The R1 R2 R2 combo is a great way to get in some fast hits and instantly get right back out, while the R2 R1 R1 spin is obviously great at taking on enemy groups. One of my favorite combos for the Twin Rigged is the alternating R1 R2 combo that ends with the R1 or R2 finisher. Very hefty damage you can dish out with both of these. Overall, the Twin Rigged is an amazing weapon for difficult encounters, but it lacks some ability to stagger and interrupt enemy attacks. This may get you hit more often in larger group fights, but you do have those backwards flip attacks that work great with hit and run tactics. If these had just a little more stagger power, you'd be looking at one of the best weapons in the game, but I ultimately landed on an arbitrary overall rating of 4.5 out of 5. The One-Handed. The one-handed is a fairly basic overall weapon with average speed, average reach, but also doesn't necessarily excel in any particular area. The horizontal and vertical strikes both come out quite quickly and seem to be some of its most reliable attack strings. The charge attacks are pretty standard and only offer a slight overall improvement to range and damage. The dodge and dash attacks are both great ways to start up combos, and the jump attack for this weapon is a quite effective slam that can knock down enemies. The R1 R2 R2 combo is an easy way to get to that slam attack from a combo, and the R2 R1 R1 spin attack is sadly very slow and only somewhat useful. My favorite combo for this weapon, however, has to be the alternating R1 R2 combo that ends with another R2 that I found to be one of the quickest ways to deal a ton of damage. Overall, the one-handed doesn't do anything particularly well or necessarily abysmal, but it can be a reliable go-to weapon for those wanting something a little more straightforward. This ultimately lands the one-handed at an arbitrary ranking of 3 out of 5. The Double Duty. The Double Duty is a trick-style weapon that allows you to seamlessly morph your attacks mid-combo, making it a very flexible overall tool. The stalled horizontal and vertical strikes offer some slow pummel attacks that are great at staggering enemies, but unique to the Double Duty, if you double press any of these inputs quickly, you will morph your attacks into these far faster dual-wielding variants. The charge attacks are two very strong ways to quickly pre-prime up some damage, but they do take a fairly large chunk of stamina. The dash attack is decent, but you do need to account for that flip animation in the startup, but the dodge attack might be the better alternative when closing the distance. The jump attack is a strong slam that is great for knocking enemies down. This weapon has some very complex combo strings, but I have to highlight the R1 stalled into R2 R2 infinite combo that can easily decimate most enemies. Overall, the Double Duty is an incredibly intricate weapon with one of the largest movesets in the game, and it offers a little bit of everything from heavy-hitting staggering strikes to fast multi-hitting dual attacks. This might sound like the perfect all-around weapon, but does have one important downside. It's very stamina hungry, and if you want to run the Double Duty, I highly recommend you pumping up this vital stat. The Double Duty gets an arbitrary overall rating of 3.5 out of 5. The Staff. The Staff is a quick, long-reaching weapon with a huge variety of wide-sweeping multi-hit attacks and straight-on heavy-hitting strikes. The horizontal attacks cover a huge distance around you, and the vertical strikes are fast and effective. The horizontal charge is great for clumped-up enemies, and the vertical charge is a personal favorite combo starter of mine. The dash and dodge attacks are fairly straightforward, and the jump is a fast slamming attack, all pretty good. The R1 R2 R2 is a quick and deadly nice little combo, and the R2 R1 R1 is somewhat slower but effective against groups. If you want an all-around showcase of what this weapon can do, the R1 R1 R2 R2 combo delivers a little bit of everything and highlights the strengths of the staff. Overall, this is an insanely effective weapon thanks to its fast, wide swings, and its multi-hitting charge attacks are some of my favorite in the game. A near-perfect weapon that only falls short with its somewhat higher stamina cost compared to the spear, but it does make up for this with a very intricate moveset, which lands it at a ranking of 4 out of 5. The Heavy Duty. The Heavy Duty is the slowest and hardest hitting single strike weapon in the game that allows you to stagger and knock down nearly anyone fool enough to get in your way. The Heavy Duty's horizontal strikes cover a large area around you, the vertical strikes are somewhat faster, but both hit like a ton of bricks. The charge attacks both have a nice quick strike in their startup that allow you to stagger enemies before delivering that final hit. The dash attack has an incredibly slow startup, but does cover a fairly large distance thanks to its slide. The dodge attack is a great way to start combos since it's one of the Heavy Duty's fastest attacks. The R1 R2 R2 combo finishes with this insanely powerful double slam attack that proves to be great in most situations. The R2 R1 R1 combo is amazing at taking on larger piles of enemies, but my preferred combo for the Heavy Duty is actually the R2 R2 R1 R1 screen. This animation takes almost forever, but you'll find its power nearly unrivaled. Overall, the Heavy Duty is a great hard-hitting weapon that takes some getting used to with its slow timing compared to the rest of the arsenal, but once you find the right groove with it, it's incredibly satisfying to try to master. Obviously, since it's slow, you might find it to be a bad matchup against certain enemy types, which lands it at an arbitrary overall score of 3.5 out of 5. The Single Rig. The Single Rigged is a somewhat slow club-style weapon that delivers some powerful blows while also being able to launch enemies up into the air quite efficiently. The basic horizontal and vertical strikes both have fairly slow startup animations, but for what they lack in speed, they make up for in raw damage. The horizontal charge is great for spinning your way into groups, and the vertical charge is your go-to method for popping enemies up into the air. The dodge attack is one of the quicker strikes available for the Single Rigged, and the dash is a standard sliding attack. The jump attack, just like the dodge, are both reliable ways to start a string. The R1 R2 R2 combo deals a decent amount of damage and ends with a cool little flying kick. The R2 R1 R1 is a really hard-hitting string of powerful strikes. One of my favorites for the Single Rigged, however, is the R1 R1 R2 combo that ends with a brutal downward slam. Overall, the Single Rigged is fairly straightforward with some good damage potential, but its long wind-up to many of its attacks make it a very situational weapon. It does get a few bonus points for the awesome launching attack, but still, the Single Rigged lands at an arbitrary ranking of 2.5 out of 5. The Punching Gloves. The Punching Gloves are a fairly straightforward and easy to learn weapon that functions similar to the twin rigged weapon type, but are slightly slower, packing more of a punch. The horizontal strikes are decently fast for the Punching Gloves, with the vertical being somewhat slower but better at staggering enemies. The charge attacks for these are fairly basic, but they do have some decent follow-ups after them. The dash attack has a fairly long startup animation, but the dodge attack is quick and reliable. The jump attack is yet again another powerful slam. The R1 R2 R2 combo is a decent damage dealer, but by far my favorite thing for the Punching Gloves is the R2 R1 R1 string that allows you to pummel enemies to death until you run out of stamina. Overall, the Punching Gloves get the job done, but don't offer a ton of variety with their moveset, at least directly compared to the somewhat similar Twin Rigged. The Punching Gloves will definitely get the job done, just not with a ton of flair, but the repeating pummel combo for these is so effective, it does bump them up to a fairly respectable 3.5 out of 5. And that covers all 9 of the core weapon types available in the Surge 2, and you probably noticed I didn't rank any single weapon a perfect 5 stars, and honestly that's a good sign because that means the top tier weapons all had their strengths and weaknesses, with nothing that really stood out as too OP to me. This was all subjective based off my own opinion, but this should have hopefully helped you out with knowing how effective the weapon classes are, and will hopefully now save you some crafting materials so you don't upgrade the ones you may not like. If you enjoy the style of informative content I do here at Boomstick Gaming, consider subscribing, ringing that little bell icon if you already are, and also following me on Twitter at BoomstickAlex. I also encourage you to check out my tiered YouTube member system and Patreon that gives some worthwhile benefits back to you while also directly helping to support what I do here. These top supporters right here have been a great asset to the channel and have helped to increase the production values for everybody watching. As always, this has been Alex. I appreciate you watching this all the way to the end. Thank you.
Alright you weeble bastards, here is how to become OP as Samurai in 1 hour. From that hour you can do whatever to upgrade character further, be it Ash of War, Bloody Slash and putting points into Arcane, boost dexterity, find some charms, look for better flask upgrades, whatever you like. Starting item should be either Golden Seed or Ember Talisman. Golden Seed is better choice because Talisman can be bought at Merchant on eastern side of Weeping Peninsula, but if you want extra health without having to spend more money, go for Ember Talisman. first order of business is to reach Church of Elec and pick up Smithing Stone. Then get the horse by going to Disgrace and speak to Malina to get your steed. Then we have to reach 3rd Church of Marika to get Flask, Crimson Tear and Sacred Tear. Immediately apply Sacred Tear to boost health and focus recharge rate. While there, go south to pick up Greenspill and Spike Tear. Now combine Crimson and Greenspill effects into Flask to heal stamina and health additionally in troubling encounters. Now head back to 3rd Church of Marika and enter portal to Beast Sanctum. By using Grace at Beast Sanctum, Round Table Hold is unlocked so we can upgrade weapons. First thing first, this is where you farm little bastards for half an hour, 40 minutes or something like that. Goal is to get to about level 25. Watch out as they are quite dangerous. Try fighting them exactly like I'm fighting them. Most likely you won't be able to kill one with continuous swings before stamina depletion. So when that happens, move away, let them miss a few until stamina has been recharged and then head back in to finish them off. After each one, level up character and redo the run afterwards. That makes it easier. Pump endurance and vigor to about 20.
Achtung, Kontinuierung registriert.
Next we need is second Uchigatana. Go to Death-Touched Catacombs, accessed by traveling down from the hill. In this dungeon, follow path to get Uchi and get back. Optionally, boss can be killed to get Assassin's Dagger Charm that heals player from backstabs and critical hits. Useful, but not so much against bosses. Your choice if you want to deal with the boss, as he is not that difficult. Now we need to enter another location called Limgrave Tunnels, close to starting point. There we grab all smithing stones. Should be about 8 of them. You don't have to fight everyone like I did. Backstab or hit miners so that they move from smithing stone nodes on the wall and afterwards rush in to loot the node and proceed to another and another and another. Watch out for elevators, as there are secret entrances in floors between that have more smithing stones, so be prepared to jump out. Boss is optional. If you can't be arsed fighting him now, simply die and respawn at Gray's site. Next stop is bridge that connects Limgrave and Weeping Peninsula. Only thing we need from here is body in the middle of the bridge that has 3 smithing stones.
Achtung, Kontinuierung investiert.
That should be 12 tier 1 smithing stones. Now get back to Round Table Hold and upgrade both into katanas to +2. Now you are ready to kill first proper boss. Early game should be so much easier after this whole process. That is it. Thanks for watching and check out description for Patreon and subscribe for links if you find content on the channel helpful. Stay tuned for more guides.
Warrior blood must truly run in my veins.
want to be OP in Elden Ring in your first hour or so of playing, watch on and I'll step you through how to make a Katana Mage. Start your new game as a prisoner. It's got the best spread of stats and comes with a Magic Glint Blade spell, which is a pretty good one that we'll probably use only once. Make sure you choose a Golden Seed for your starting keepsake, it'll help you get more flasks. Grab the Tarnished Wizened Finger so you can interact with other players if you like PvP or if you like trolling other players into jumping off cliffs. Die to the first boss, even though you tried really hard to beat it. Don't worry though, you'll get your revenge eventually. Even though you want to leave via that door over there, don't. Drop down and do the tutorial cavern instead. It'll give you some valuable runes to spend on gear that you need as soon as you're done. I normally play without a HUD and I forgot to turn the HUD back on, so you can't see the runes yet, which would normally be in the bottom right corner, but I did remember to switch it back on later.